Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today we have a truly insightful episode lined up for you. Joining us is Rhonda Parker Taylor, our special guest, who has developed an incredibly powerful tool for mindfulness and life balance, the 13 dimensions of life balance. This framework offers a holistic approach to help people reflect on different aspects of their lives, from emotional and mental well being to physical health and relationships. It's a practical and personal system that our guest uses to maintain balance in everyday life. And today we'll dive into how you can apply it to your own life for greater mindfulness and balance. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Rhonda, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. And this is such a powerful tool for anybody listening out there that's just maybe feeling like they're stuck in a rut, or they're wanting to really get some joy out of their life and they're just not really sure where to start, or even maybe they're redefining who they are, and they want to learn to be a more impactful and authentic individual. I think the journey to life balance is definitely for you if you're in one of these scenarios.
Definitely. So, Rhonda, you have developed the 13 dimensions of life balance framework, and it sounds like a comprehensive approach to maintaining mindfulness. So, can you explain what these 13 dimensions are and how they came together as a concept?
Sure, I would love to share it. So, when I was younger, my younger youth, I used to take a road trip every few years from the Midwest, where I lived, to the West Coast. And during that time, I would reflect on where am I at, where am I wanting to be, and I would typically go to the section in the bookstore that for self-help and journaling, and look for something that I could take with me. And what I realized in that is most books don't have an overview, and they don't have like a snapshot. They're focused on career, school, or finances, maybe a spiritual connection, but it didn't have everything under one umbrella. And I started like taking more than one book, and then I'm like, really, I think everybody could benefit from an overview of reflecting on who they are, so that they can create a program in their own lives that brings that authenticity out of them, that makes them who they are and makes them find more joy. So I started combining those programs into the 13 dimensions that you mentioned. And then that way I could say, okay, what are the most important things in our life? Well, we know we have to have physical health. We know we have to have intellectual growth, or we feel stagnant. We know we have to have emotional well-being, or else, we end up having to fix some of our emotional deficiencies. We know there's integrity that we have to consider. Spiritual connections, our romantic partnerships and parenthoods, our social connections, but then we definitely can't have an oversight without looking at what we're doing financially and in our professional lives. And then, then you have to say, well, what are we doing for life satisfaction? How are we finding our joy? And also look into home and our goal setting. So those are the 13 dimensions, and I'm sure we'll talk more in depth about them as we talk.
Definitely, definitely. Listeners, before we proceed to our next questions, I would also love to add that Rhonda is an American writer, entrepreneur, and academic researcher whose journey from a fashion merchandising student to a published author is nothing short of inspiring. Her debut novel, Crossroads, has captivated readers as a suspense filled thriller, and she's also an academic leader with a background in emotional intelligence research and leadership education. So, with that, Rhonda, you have struggled academically, especially with reading and writing as a child. So, how did these early changes shape your passion for storytelling and eventually also lead you to write novels?
Well, a lot of it had to do with those challenges. I think we can all say in our lives at some point, we're like, I really want to accomplish something phenomenal. We all have something. It may be that you're the best person for making coffee and helping people enjoy their lives. Or it could be academics, it could be writing, whatever your knack is, the thing that you're good at or that you really enjoy, but you don't know how to go about putting it into practice and making it thrive as you follow your passion. And what I found is mentorships, people that either had their own journey or that have faced fears. And yes, I flunked kindergarten. I mean, that's where my learning challenges started. So most of us have that ability, and we just don't allow it to come through because we are afraid of being vulnerable. So facing those fears are so important to your journey and life balance. And when I wrote the fiction novel, I had already been doing the exercises in life balance, but I realized that was another tool for me. Although it's a suspense novel, every one of the characters are out of life balance with themselves. And that allowed me to introduce the reader to the fact that when you're not staying your authentic self, and you're not staying within what grounds you as an individual, then what ends up happening is you end up getting off your own path. And in Crossroads, the suspense novel, it ended up being tragic for some people. But on the other hand, some people just rust out and they're just not happy.
So, coming back to the 13 dimensions of life balance framework which you created, how does this framework address the different aspects of a person's life? And why is it important to consider each dimension when striving for balance and well-being?
A perfect example is we all know we need to have physical health.
Yeah.
But many times we get overwhelmed with, you have to be on a special diet, you have to exercise, you have to follow the CDC's program. And what ends up happening is really all you need to do is embrace practices that promote bodily health and vitality. So when you take the 13 dimensions, the workbook, what it does is it says, first of all, what are you doing today? Just identify it. And what makes you happy? What do you find joy in? If you love puzzles, do you like TV? Do you read novels? What is it that really brings you happiness? And when you answer those questions, then you're like, okay, well, that's fairly easy. I enjoy going on a walk, or I enjoy, wildlife, or whatever the things that a person enjoys. But then typically what ends up happening is you're like, oh, those are great things that I like to do. And then you ask the person, oh, yeah, I do them all the time. But then if you sit down with a calendar with the individual and you're really talking, okay, well, let's go for a hike or whatever it is, that there's always a lot of times a lot of excuses why we're not doing them. Or if they sit down with the calendar and they do a journal of a week's activities, none of them are on it. So like during the pandemic, I found like even myself, with me doing this every few years with myself and setting goals in each area, I was like, boy, I'm just not happy. And so I sat down and I redid my goals and what I like to do. And I realized that what I had got into a practice of doing was, when my time off, yes, I still was balanced. I had all the percentages right, where I was, doing physical activity. I was doing intellectual, emotional, but, I was doing all the easy ones, like watching TV. And like TV would be the 25th on my list of things that I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the 1 through 24, guess what? They weren't getting any time. I was ordering DoorDash, which I love DoorDash if you want to treat yourself and you're not able to go out at the time or whatever. But I love cooking, and cooking is better for my physical well-being. So, it was like, sometimes even when you think you're not in balance with yourself, when you really look at what you're doing, you're not feeding your soul. So it's a part of feeding each one of those dimensions, not just saying I'm doing it. We're not human beings when we're doing a checklist. Instead we're humans doing.
Lovely. And in your personal life, how have the 13 dimensions helped you manage stress or overcome moments of imbalance? If you can give us an example.
Okay, I would love to give you an example. I tend to sometimes work towards being a workaholic if I don't monitor myself. And workaholic's not just staying at your computer; it's living it in your brain and not working, doing the things that are spending intentional time with your loved ones. So what I have found for a person like myself is I schedule things in to make sure. So in the morning time, I make it part of my practice that I open my blinds. I look outside. I enjoy the sun or the rain or whatever the little critter that maybe, whether it be a squirrel, a possum, whatever, a fox. Even though I live in the city, I have property, so I get, deer or baby deer or whatever it is that I see, I try to intentionally enjoy it. That also promotes conversation with your loved ones that isn't around the things we have to get done. And then the other thing that I do is let's say I have a late meeting or something. I have a list of things that I can do to show my loved ones that I love them. That doesn't cost money. Many times people think that fostering meaningful connections and intimacy requires money. It doesn't. Now, yes, there are things that you might want to spend money on, maybe a trip or something like jewelry, because women do like jewelry. But yes, there are times that money can be spent, but when was the last time that you got a gift that had paper inside of it, and when the person when you pulled out each one, it was the 100 things that each one had a different item that they loved about you?
Never, I guess.
But think of how intentional that is. You've had to sit there and think about what you love about your partner, or that you like about your partner, or you appreciate. And that can go in several different ways. The 50 top things that you've enjoyed doing over the years with them. Intentionality requires some thought, but no money. And so sometimes in our pursuit for in the dimensions of life, we have to nurture our capacity to understand and manage not only ourselves, but our feelings. Things die on the branch, what a plant, for instance, or a tree, when it's not given water and food. So if you're not nurturing those connections and building and enriching those in your relationship, they will die.
Yeah, that's true.
And the commitment will erode. So it doesn't matter if it's a romantic partnership or whether it's even your family and siblings. So like, for instance, I told my sister, she was talking about, she was going to be driving. She was starting a new phase in her life, and she was showing dogs. She has a beautiful, beautiful Irish setter. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to be in the car for, however many hours going to that particular dog show. I'm like, when was the last time you talked to our aunt, which, she's getting up in age? Spend that, you can put your phone on handless or hand-free, and spend that 30 minutes, because she likes, she'll want to talk for a while, and spend that 30 minutes catching up with the people that you haven't had time to all week.
Exactly.
So it's just building and cultivating balance through that aligns with your values. Some people might say, I don't want to talk to my family. that it's more mentally healthy when I don't talk to my family. Well, then what are the things that are unique that uphold your core values and ethical principles? Maybe it's a work person, maybe it's a friend. We aren't meant to be alone. So it's about self-actualizing through our interpersonal and interpersonal belief systems.
That's really profound. And
Thank you.
For someone who feels overwhelmed and unsure of where to start, how would you recommend they approach the 13 dimensions and begin incorporating them into their daily mindfulness practice?
First is reflect on where you are. Because if you can't make a game plan and adjust things without focusing on who you are and why you do certain things, and realize that it's not a process of changing everything overnight. It's incremental, only small changes in your life that matter. For instance, physical well-being. We all know what it is. We know we have to have our fruits and our vegetables and water, etc. If you're a busy person, most likely you're probably not spending time mindfully thinking about whether you've drank your water today. So it might be as easy as saying, okay, you know what? The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I get my water. And every 2 hours while I'm at work, I am going to drink a bottle of water. And then, every 2 hours, you grab your next bottle of water and you drink it. And, whatever that, if it's intellectual growth that you want to focus on, what is it that you want to learn about? Maybe if you're wanting to make a career change, for instance, let's say you want to get into a creative field, but you're in healthcare. Well, that's not an easy shift.
Yes, it is. It is very difficult.
But it may not be as overwhelming as one thinks. Google what creative jobs are out there at the price that that you need as for a salary, and then say, oh, all I need to do is learn how to do graphics with Adobe, and then your library probably has a class for Adobe. So it's, or maybe it's someone that says, I'm just bored. I want to learn more about food. Well, guess what? Your intellectual growth could be YouTube and books on eating healthier without overwhelming you know, overwhelming your differences of what's healthy and not healthy.
Yep.
So there's so many easy ways of enjoying life. And what I find that happens to me is when I'm not balanced, I find myself, and one of my favorite rooms in my home, because I love my home, is and my front room has a bay window that looks over the property, and I can see all the different wildlife that's coming through. And I love to sit there and watch. But sometimes when I get stuck, I find myself sitting, and it's a brown chair that was my grandmother's in this room. And I look around and I realize that there's a reason that I'm stuck. And one of those reasons is I get immobilized by realizing that there's another task to do. And sometimes I just need that moment. And in that particular room, there's one setup that I have that has little figurines of animals. And it has the elephants and the jaguar, and I look at it, and it has a huge plant over it. And I'm like, this is my worldview. My dad used to say, you can tell the economy by how many trucks are on the road. And I used to tell them, and you can tell a person's worldview by how they treat the animals.
Wow.
And when I came to the thought that you have to have both, I realized productivity and mindfulness sometimes clash. And what I have to do in those moments is realize which one's overwhelming me that has me stuck. Is it that I'm so in that I have to relax, which then we become lazy? Or is it because I've been so productive that I have to revamp my thoughts and spend more time in reflection, mindfulness, and breathing? And so then when I did that practice just recently, I realized, okay, there's all kinds of breathing exercises out there to help me deep breathe and rejuvenate and become more mindful. And then I was looking for a new one, and I saw what they do in psychiatry, and it's called animal breathing. And I was like, what is animal breathing? And it's where you picture and visualize how you need yourself to be in the moment. Let's say you need courage. You're getting ready to do a presentation. Then you might want to breathe like a lion. So you do your deep breathing and picture yourself taking over that lion attitude and feeling. And then as you finish at the end, you may go, rawr, because you're ready to go do that presentation. Now, if you're getting ready to have a contentious meeting with a spouse or a loved one and there's going to be tension, you definitely don't want lion breathing. You're going to want something more peaceful, maybe a dove or some other wildlife that has a more peaceful feeling to you. And I have found when I do that, it's like I get rejuvenized to what I need to take care of in the moment, which is all of those 13 dimensions. You can't forget that sometimes you have to nurture your home and your living space. Just recently, we had to pull everything in and get ready for the fall, right?
Yeah.
And, and that may mean that, you have to change some things. And then in that moment, and I was talking about the front room, I have one thing that's most people always say, well, that's out of place. It's Christmas. Or, something in the front that I can see because they may say that's out of place. It's summertime and you still have a pumpkin. But those things mean something to me. The one Christmas one, it lights up by itself in the middle of the night and it shimmers and it provides hope and glory to me. And it brings that shimmery like a shaking ball that you would do at Christmas time that would have the snowflakes. And it reminds me every evening that no matter how dark it is, there's always something that it can bring you forward. And we're all going to have life hit us sometimes, but we have light out there if we choose to face it.
Wow. That was lovely, lovely. And the concept of balance can sometimes feel abstract, especially in our fast paced world. So, how can your 13 dimensions framework bring more concrete mindfulness practices into everyday routines and to sustain that balance for long term?
Sure. So in my workbook, which should be out shortly, it's in the editing process. So it takes you through exercises for all 13 dimensions. You can do this on your own, though. Set your goals. Once you've gone through exercises and reflection and whatever works for you, to identify the things that you're doing right and the things that you're doing wrong, then you do it just like any other goal, a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. And so let's take a different one, emotional intelligence, your emotional well-being. That's all about being able to not only nurture your own capacity for understanding and empathy and manage your feelings, but it's also recognizing others. So let's say that you think you find out about yourself in your reflection that you need to be more self-aware. Then that means that you need to be more active listening. And so you would put active listening skills. And here again, not everything costs money, but some things do. Let's say you're terrible at stress management. There's 1,000 ways to handle stress management. Because this is a podcast that's audio only, you can't see that I have long hair, but maybe the picture does show my long hair. I might have it up. But what I have found, even for young women that have a hard time with stress tolerance, because I have some anxiety and stress, is the scrunchie is a great stress reliever. The thing that you put your hair in, yes. Take it out. And I find that I use it as a stress ball. Sometimes I'll pull it, I'll flip, have it on my wrist, I take it on, put it off. So you find these tools that help you manage your emotional and well-being so that you're more on a more healthy basis. And if anybody wants a great book out there, read any of Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence. This is where I learned that I could become a doctor by reading his books.
Super.
In those books, it teaches you that your IQ, yes, it's important, but a lot of people have learning disabilities and learning challenges. But your most important is your EQ, your emotional intelligence quotient, because it teaches you how to manage life, balance, your ability to manage your own feelings and others. And EQ is more important than your IQ in the success of yourself.
True. That's true.
And so if you can learn how to have good interpersonal skills, intrapersonal skills, stress management, and general mood. Those are the 4 major categories of emotional intelligence. Now, there's 21 different characteristics, but those are the 4 major ones. I had a CEO that I actually, when I did my study for the UN Global Compact Committee, when I tested them for emotional intelligence, they had a great score, but they were always failing. And so we had to dig into the 21 characteristics, and the ones that he was basically a 0 on was stress tolerance and emotional control, or impulse control. So every time there was stress, he was running away. And every time there was something happy that was impulsive, he was running with the wind. So therefore, all the major challenges, he was emotionally unavailable. So we had to set a plan on those characteristics. So if you put SMART goals, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goal, which all of us are trained to do in school, make goals. For all of the 13 dimensions, you're going to improve your happiness, your emotional well-being. You're going to improve your relationships, your life satisfaction, and your joy, your physical health. All of them are going to improve because if you're taking those steps, it doesn't have to be big wiping steps. It's small ones. You like blueberries. Blueberries are now a part of your breakfast. Whatever it might be, blueberries is an anti-inflammatory. It's going to help you with whatever it might be that you can add to your life, and cultivate that well-balanced living that aligns with your personal values. I had to adjust in my integrity core. I felt like I had very ethical principles, but I found that my language sometimes was not as direct as it should be. So it made me look sometimes incompetent, or sometimes it made me look like I wasn't telling the truth, maybe a little shady. So I had to say, wait a minute, I need to learn to be more direct in my communication because it's eroding how people feel about my integrity. Break it down into small chunks.
Of course. And finally, looking forward, how do you see the 13 dimensions framework evolving as you continue to apply it in your life and share it with others?
I say, I wish I could have talked to my younger self because I was always doing it like from 20 on, but I didn't realize the impact that it really could have. I focused in my early years more on the surface stuff, and now I'm realizing it can really set you up for success and happiness because it allows you to follow what your intended purpose is. And I'm just now getting into that stride of that. I've always been in education and leadership, but I realize that it allows me to pursue aspirations that I wouldn't have been able to pursue before because I was afraid to do it. I was afraid to put that one foot in front of the other to follow those passions. So I'm finding in applying the dimensions, I'm allowing and giving myself permission to be me.
Wow.
And not what somebody else wants me to be.
Lovely. That's really lovely, Rhonda. And before we wrap up, if our listeners want to dive deeper into this system and explore how they can apply it in their own lives, how they can access.
Sure. I try to make it easy for anybody to be able to reach out and with questions or get a hold of any of my podcasts or anything that we've done. It's Rhonda, Rhonda, Parker, Parker, Taylor, Taylor.com. That's my website. I'm on all the social medias as the same. Feel free to reach out. Like I said, the workbook will be available shortly. I would say, in the next month. It's in the editing process. And, that would be another way. And hopefully it'll be in the Barnes and Noble's bookstores by then. If not, then you can reach out and I can get you a copy.
Super. We'll mention the details in show notes. And
thank you.
Rhonda, thank you so much for sharing the 13 dimensions of life balance with us today. And your framework, it offers such a pragmatic and holistic approach to mindfulness that I'm very sure our listeners will find invaluable. So thank you once again.
Thank you. And you guys have a wonderful day, everybody, and make every day great. Remember, it's your only opportunity every day.
Definitely. And listeners, for anyone who wish to access Rhonda's 13 Dimensions of Life Balance and her upcoming book, be sure to check out the show notes. We'll mention all the details and you can refer it along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And thanks again to all of you for joining us on the Mindful Living and to our to reiterate, remember, balance is achievable with the right tools and mindset as well. And stay mindful, stay balanced. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Awesome. Awesome.